July 2025. From the Southern Hemisphere, in Chile, the Atlas Astronomical Surveillance System, short for Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, detects a strange point of light not listed in any catalog. The object's velocity is far too high to belong to the solar system, and its trajectory is clearly hyperbolic, indicating an interstellar origin. The object receives the provisional designation 3I/Atlas, becoming the third confirmed visitor from beyond the solar system, after I-1, Oumuamua in 2017 and I-2, Borisov in 2019. Initial data is rough. Observers estimate a size of several tens of kilometers, and early analyses show puzzling behavior. There's no classic cometary tail as expected. There are signs of mass loss and emissions that don't fit any standard comet or asteroid model. A visitor that simply doesn't fit our categories. Among the scientists commenting on the discovery is Avi Loeb, a Harvard astrophysicist known for his bold hypotheses about interstellar objects. It's not the first time Loeb sparks debate. He previously suggested that Oumuamua might have an artificial origin, and now he's doing it again. Loeb points out that 3I/Atlas shows enough anomalies to justify a thorough search for artificial emissions, and notes that its trajectory aligns with the origin of the WOW signal, a strong narrowband radio emission detected in 1977 by the Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio, a 72-second burst that never repeated and remains one of SETI's biggest mysteries. Loeb cautiously suggests it might be worth checking for any directional or temporal connection between that event and what we're observing now. While the scientific community urges enhanced surveillance and increased observation, global politics take a sharp turn. In the Caribbean, tensions rise by the day. By late August, the United States announces the deployment of a multinational fleet off the coast of Venezuela, under the official pretext of a major anti-drug offensive. Aircraft carriers, destroyers, and surveillance planes gather in the Gulf of Paria and the Eastern Caribbean, while U.S. Southern Command claims it's a coordinated operation to restore regional security. However, the scale of the deployment raises eyebrows. The numbers don't add up. The magnitude, greater than what was mobilized at the start of the Iraq War, far exceeds what's needed for an anti-drug campaign. Washington insists it's part of routine international cooperation exercises, but military analysts suggest it's a strategic move against the Caracas regime. Meanwhile, China and Russia remain completely silent, simply monitoring the situation through their satellite networks. What's gone largely unreported by mainstream media, however, is that over the following weeks, fishermen and civilian pilots began reporting unidentified lights over the sea, objects moving at impossible speeds, performing maneuvers beyond any known aircraft, even emerging from or diving into the water without visible disturbance. Videos leak online. While the Pentagon remains silent, media outlets label them aerial anomalies, and several independent researchers classify them as unidentified aerial phenomena. The recordings match the time and location of U.S. task force operations. Speculation grows. Is this really a war on drug cartels? A military rehearsal for regime change? Or could this massive deployment be a covert operation preparing for something far bigger, something connected to what's approaching from space? But another puzzle piece doesn't quite fit. Just a week ago, a peace summit was suddenly convened, initially focused on the Israel-Palestine conflict, yet unexpectedly attended by delegations from around the world. What should have been a local or regional agreement turns into a high-profile global event, document signings, hostage releases, and headlines proclaiming a turning point. India and Pakistan show signs of reconciliation after years of tension. In Eastern Europe, long-stalled negotiations suddenly move forward. News outlets loop endless footage of handshakes, flags, and solemn speeches. Even this Friday, during the Trump-Zelensky meeting, the US president stated that he delivered the same message to Ukraine's leader as to Vladimir Putin. I told him, as I strongly suggested to President Putin, that it's time to stop the killing and make a deal. The timing, between the emergence of 3I/Atlas, massive undeclared military movements, and a sudden wave of global peace accords, raises many questions. Peace usually stems from multiple causes: international pressure, war fatigue, the self-interest of key players. But the simultaneity of so many breakthroughs feels suspicious. What triggered all these deadlocks to break open at once? Did fear, real or manufactured, push rivals to negotiate? Were there hidden pressures guiding events behind the scenes? There's an almost forgotten episode of The Twilight Zone from 1986 titled A Small Talent for War. It's a short gem, barely 7 minutes long. An alien emissary suddenly teleports into the UN chamber, declaring that his race created humanity 2 million years ago for a specific purpose. Throughout our history, They've observed our repetitive, primitive, and violent nature, endless, ridiculous conflicts worldwide. The emissary calls it, with contempt, a small talent for war. Disappointed, he announces they've decided to exterminate humanity immediately and start over with a new species. The humans beg desperately for a chance to prove they can change. They're granted 24 hours. Nations race against time to establish global peace and show the emissary they can abolish their savage, warlike tendencies. At the last minute, they succeed, a worldwide peace treaty. They proudly present it as proof of mankind's evolution. The emissary chuckles and clarifies, "You've misunderstood." When he criticized humanity's primitive bellicosity, he meant that their original purpose for creating humans was to breed a race of highly skilled warriors to serve as an interplanetary army. After sharing one last ironic laugh, the emissary snaps his fingers, summoning his fleet to annihilate Earth. The episode carries some eerie parallels to today's events. In 1986, the Cold War made the US and USSR the story's obvious poles. Yet among all the country placards in the UN scene, one stands out repeatedly: Ukraine, even though at the time, Ukraine was still part of the USSR. A subtle but uncanny detail. There's more. At one point, the Soviet delegate demands proof that the aliens can actually carry out their threat. The emissary replies coldly, "Keep your eyes on the skies," then vanishes. Moments later, a UN aide delivers an urgent phone call from an observatory: Halley's Comet has been destroyed. Considering Halley's famous 1986 pass near Earth, the presence of Ukraine, an asteroid, and world peace in the same narrative feels like more than coincidence. Which brings us to now. Why, at this precise moment, while an interstellar object approaches Earth, is the world's leading superpower simultaneously deploying massive forces in the Caribbean and calling for sudden global peace? What if this new harmony isn't what it seems? What if the real message is that humanity must unite, not for peace, but for defense? Or, what if something far darker hides beneath it all? The so-called Project Blue Beam, also known as the Divine Light Project, was proposed in 1994 by Canadian journalist Serge Monod, along with Omar Philali. Monod theorized that, in the future, technological advances and media manipulation could be used to stage a global-scale, otherworldly event, orchestrated by world powers, especially the US government, to provoke mass hysteria and establish a new world order built on social control and manufactured faith. Monod claimed he was persecuted for revealing this information. Both he and Philali died in 1996 of alleged heart attacks, though their followers insist they were silenced. They even accused the Canadian government of abducting Monod's daughter to halt his investigations. Monod explained the theory through the mindset of his era: satellites and holograms, born from the age of televangelists, the digital boom, and early globalization. Although there's no verifiable evidence that Project Blue Beam ever existed or was implemented, the idea persisted, evolving into a cultural myth, a kind of modern folklore in the world of conspiracy theories. Today, the theory begs reinterpretation, not as a literal plan for holograms in the sky, but as a metaphor for technological and media power shaping collective perception, how authority, fear, and hope can merge to steer entire societies without a single shot fired. In this sense, Blue Beam has become a symbol of modern control, not domination by the sword, but by the story. The idea that a cosmic threat, rather than a divine or alien one, could unite the world under a single banner raises an unsettling question. What if the next contact or miracle from the heavens isn't projected by satellites, but scripted by human hands? Now, Project Blue Beam resurfaces as a framework for those seeking connections between the interstellar object, global peace, and military maneuvers. 3 decades later, events seem to have unfolded step by step, almost perfectly aligned with the structure Monod once described, not as the holographic fantasy of the 1990s, but as a systematic, 4-phase plan. Phase 1, control of personal identity. Early versions imagined electronic tattoos, barcode IDs, or mandatory microchips. None of that was needed. Control arrived disguised as convenience: smartphones, cloud services, biometric apps. Each individual now carries their own tracker, a personal node in a vast network that, in real time, knows not just where you are and what you do, but what you want, what you fear, and even what you think. It can predict your future actions with chilling accuracy, and subtly steer them. Your recommended content, clickbait, TikToks, Spotify playlists, YouTube videos, or even Pornhub suggestions, isn't random. It's calibration. The leap from pocket to body is already happening. In Sweden, since 2020, Over 5,000 people have implanted NFC chips to replace physical cards. And when companies like Apple or Neuralink roll it out as the next evolutionary step, no one will need to force it. We'll stand in line for hours and pay for the privilege. Phase 2, distortion of truth. It started with fake news, cracking open the narrative. Soon came the flood of fact-checking outlets, each claiming to arbitrate reality. Then, AI changed the game entirely. With cloned voices and faces, deepfakes have reached terrifying levels of realism. In seconds, AI can generate videos of historical figures or dead celebrities doing anything imaginable. Aretha Franklin making soy candles, Carrie Fisher walking a tightrope, Nat King Cole ice skating in Havana. Families of figures like Martin Luther King Jr. have even filed complaints over AI-generated fakes. Historians warn that deepfakes could soon rewrite history itself. The line between real and fabricated has all but vanished. We live in a collective cognitive dissonance, believing and doubting everything at once. Humanity no longer seeks facts, it seeks validation. And soon, as chaos peaks, people will beg for a single, official source of truth. A global authority to tell us what's real. Phase 3, the celestial manifestation. It's no coincidence that, in recent years, classified UFO documents and testimonies from pilots and intelligence officials have been declassified, and formal government departments established to investigate unidentified aerial phenomenons. It looks like slow psychological conditioning. And now, with 3I/Atlas in play, an interstellar object defying physics, the perfect stage is set. A simulated contact could be created simply by controlling what's classified and what's revealed, by shaping the narrative of higher beings demanding human unity under a single power or else annihilation. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? A fake judgment day without an actual apocalypse, no need for sky holograms or multilingual mind transmissions like Mona imagined. Narrative control alone could make us believe it's real. Too many coincidences. Too much synchronicity. Too much silence. Phase 4, the techno-spiritual new order. Once the turning point is achieved, a new structure of emotional and digital control will be established, not through force, but through desire. Humanity, terrified of the unknown, will beg for unity under one leader, one system, one truth. It won't be an alien invasion or a divine reckoning. It will be a new era of illumination, carefully programmed. At this point, you can believe whatever you want. Treat this as fiction, or as prophecy. But one date is marked on every calendar, December 19, 2025, the day 3I/Atlas makes its closest approach to Earth. The day when science, politics, and myth may finally converge. For some, it will prove that science holds the last word. For others, it'll be the day when fiction and strategy merge into a single narrative, brewed from rumor and calculation alike. There are no clear villains here, no easy truths. Just an interstellar object that defies explanation, scientists urging caution, leaders seizing global attention, and societies yearning for safety. The line between reality and narrative has never been thinner. The sky doesn't promise answers, only one question: when the improbable breaks into our everyday lives, will technology still be our tool, or will the narrative become the most powerful weapon of all?